You know, it is endings like the one we got on this pay-per-view that makes me so damn proud to be a fan of professional wrestling, even still to this day, because we are experiencing one of the greatest storylines in so many years in professional wrestling, not just WWE, but that's across the board in all of wrestling. This story with Sami Zayn and the Bloodline that has gone on for several months now. And tonight, we reached a whole new level in this story. It is a level that we all knew was coming, but it just finally arrived on this show at the end of the show at the Royal Rumble. They saved the Undisputed Universal Championship match as the main event of this show for this purpose, and we got it here. And I am here to talk all about it. This is your Royal Rumble 2023 review. I am DerekJ Speaks, and we just witnessed an incredible angle at the end of this show, where after Roman Reigns successfully retained the undisputed WWE Universal Championship over Kevin Owens in a really good match. Something that will get lost in all this is the fact that this main event match was very good. If you've seen Owens and Reigns before, you know they have very good chemistry. They have really great matches. This one was no exception. But we all knew the match itself was not the story here. The story was what was going on with the honorary Uce, Sami Zayn, and what his role was here. Of course, he was out there at ringside for the match. Roman told him going in not to do anything, until he did tell him to do something, which was grab a steel chair, which almost cost Roman. Owens hit a stunner, and it was a very close near fall. But in the end, we saw a very vicious side of Roman Reigns, who rammed the back of Kevin Owens' head into the front of the steel steps twice. And then after already hitting him with 2 spears previously, low blows, I think he hit actually it was 3 spears, because one of those spears was outside through the barricade around the timekeeper's area. After all that, Roman hit one final spear on Kevin Owens in the ring and got the 1, 2, 3. And that was it. All the while, as Roman was getting more and more vicious with his beatdown of Kevin Owens, you could see Sami Zayn. The camera pointed to him at different points in the closing moments of this match, where he's on the outside and he's looking very concerned, very disgusted even at what he's seeing. And so after the match, Roman wins. The rest of the Bloodline comes out. The Usos, Solo Sikoa, everyone's out there. They're all getting their leis wrapped around their necks. And Jey Uso, the same Jey Uso who did not like Sami Zayn, did not trust Sami Zayn originally. But then after War Games, he embraced Sami. He even stood up for him at the Tribal Court segment on Raw the previous week. He was about to place the lei around Sami's neck when Roman stopped him and instructed the Bloodline to continue beating down Kevin Owens. And they did that. The Usos were beating him down. They hit him with the 1D. They wrapped a steel chair around his head, placed him into the corner. Solo hit a running hip attack. Paul Heyman busted out 2 sets of handcuffs, and they handcuffed both of Owens' arms and wrists to the top rope, where the Usos rained down multiple super kicks right to this man's face. Roman, with a steel chair in hand, he is gearing up. He's ready to unleash on Kevin Owens. And then Sami Zayn steps in. And the crowd, this crowd in the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas, they were just perfect for this entire segment here. They reacted exactly how you would have wanted them to. So Sami steps in the way. He's telling Roman, you're better than this. You already won. You don't need to do this. And Roman's like, you're right. I don't. I shouldn't have to do this. You should. And he just extends his arm out with the chair and presents it to Sami, who reluctantly takes the chair. And Roman is telling him, this man, he doesn't care about you. Like, we love you. I love you. Do this for the family. And Sami, he is reluctant. He doesn't want to do it. He's even starting to cry, which Roman points out in a rather mocking tone to Paul Heyman, who's on the apron. He's telling him, like, what are you crying for? And then he starts to shove Sami. He's getting in his face. He's kind of pie-facing him a little bit. He's brushing the side of his face. And you could see it coming. But every time it looked like it was about to happen, Roman turned around right at the last second. But Roman was standing between Sami and Kevin Owens. So Sami has this chair. Roman's screaming at him to pull the trigger. And Sami does just that. And at the right moment, with Roman's back turned, Sami unloads and he connects with a hard shot with that chair right to Roman's back. And Roman sells it perfectly. He just goes down and the crowd went crazy. I swear the audio busted. This crowd went so crazy for this spot here. Sami turns around. Jey Uso screaming at him, what did you just do? What did you just do? And Sami just tells him, I apologize. I'm sorry. And then Jimmy Uso, the man who's been dapping Sami up. He's been his dog all these months. Jimmy liked him from the jump. But Jimmy wasted no time here. Just the first one to deliver a super kick right to Sami's jaw. And down goes Sami. And then Jimmy starts to unload a bunch of punches on him. Solo Sikoa pushes Jimmy out of the way and he gets in some licks on him too. All the Bloodline are beating down Sami Zayn except for Jey Uso, who is sitting up on the top turnbuckle in the corner. And when the rest of the Bloodline, Jimmy and Roman and all of them, they're telling him like, hey, like, what are you doing? Jey gets off the turnbuckle and he leaves the ring. And he just walks away from this entire thing, leaving the rest of the Bloodline just flabbergasted at all this. And so Jey leaves and the beatdown continues. Roman has a steel chair. He's just raining down upon Sami with this steel chair, screaming at him and all that. He rips the Honorary Oos t-shirt off of him, which was kind of a giveaway because a little bit before any of this happened, I did notice there was a little small tear on Sami's shirt. It was like right on the edge of his collar there. So I knew, okay, that's a sign he's probably getting that shirt ripped off tonight. And, well, that's exactly what happened. And these fans who were chanting for Sami were cheering for him. All the while now they're just booing the crap out of the Bloodline. They're booing Roman Reigns to the point where they start a fuck you Roman chant. Unbelievable. This whole thing was just so perfectly executed. And of course, right before they leave, Jimmy Uso delivers one final super kick to Kevin Owens' face, and the Bloodline leaves. They're walking up the ramp, and in the ring, we see two fallen warriors in Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. And you couldn't write a better ending than that. This was wonderful. I was wondering going in if they were going to end the Rumble pay-per-view with the championship match. Preferably, I would like to see a Rumble match close out the show. But then once the show opened and they said the first match is the men's Royal Rumble, it's like, okay, that's a dead giveaway there because you know they're not ending with the women. And so you knew if they're going to end with the championship match, something big is going to happen. Some people thought maybe it would be an even bigger surprise. Maybe we might end up seeing The Rock. Nothing like that. This was the moment that we all knew was coming since this storyline really took off. This story has been going on for months. This dates all the way back to late spring, early summer last year, with Sami trying to get in the good graces of the Bloodline and Roman Reigns. It only really started to heat up once Triple H took over creative from Vince McMahon. And it really started to turn into a big thing where the fans were really getting into this thing. They're really getting invested into it. There was the moments of laughter and Sami trying to break the rest of the guys in the Bloodline and all that. And that stuff matters even more now because you got to laugh and enjoy yourself at that point. And now you fast forward all these months later and you see a segment like this, it hits harder. It resonates with you more. And these fans were just ready to cheer for Sami Zayn. And they did. Like I said, that pop for when Sami hit him with that chair was just glorious. And now the question is, where do we go from here? Because Sami Zayn was not in the Royal Rumble match. Sami Zayn did not win the Royal Rumble match. Someone else won the men's Royal Rumble match, and that person is getting a championship match at WrestleMania. So, where do we go from here? I know a lot of people are saying the move to go with is Sami Zayn being the one to beat Roman Reigns for those championships at WrestleMania in the main event. And in almost any other situation and scenario, yes, that is the conceivable outcome of this story. But Kevin Owens is still a part of this story. And the Usos, especially Jay, is still a focal point of this story. So where do we go from here? I say the obvious direction is a championship match with Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn, not at WrestleMania, but next month at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, which just so happens to be taking place in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Now, this can either be a chamber match where you throw in a bunch of other guys in there. It doesn't even need that. This just needs to be Roman and Sami one-on-one, just the two of them. You don't need anyone else, just the two of them one-on-one. And now you can spend these next few weeks with, obviously Sami's not going to come out right away. Like, you got to sell this beatdown for at least a week or two. But eventually Sami's going to return, and maybe even Kevin Owens alongside him, or maybe he'll be out a little bit longer. Either way, Sami will eventually be back, and he'll be chasing after Roman and chasing after those titles heading into the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. And so you set that match up, but all the while you still play up the story with Jey Uso. He was the one member of the Bloodline who did not participate in this beatdown. And by all intents and purposes, he's on the outs of the Bloodline right now. He's not connected to them right now with what they did. Obviously, he was very upset with what Sami did, but at the same time, he didn't want nothing to do with this beatdown of Sami Zayn here. After all those months of doubt and paranoia and just outright rejection of Sami Zayn having anything to do with the Bloodline, Jey Uso finally came around on Sami Zayn, and now, not too long afterwards, Jey Uso is seeing Sami Zayn smack Roman Reigns in the back with a steel chair. And then the rest of the Bloodline beating down Sami Zayn. And so you can play that up more, Jey being conflicted, until we get to the pay-per-view, where Jey finally comes to his senses and rejoins his family, and he is the main culprit who screws over Sami Zayn. And then you redirect that story right back around to Sami and Jey Uso. And that sets up Sami Zayn reuniting with his old friend Kevin Owens to take on the Usos for the tag team championships at WrestleMania. Some people think that this is a step down for Sami and his story and that this is going to stunt his momentum and all that stuff. I think you people fail to realize just how over Sami Zayn is. Yes, there is a story there to be told with Sami challenging Roman for the championship in the main event of WrestleMania. And in any other instance, I probably would have wanted to see that. But I think there is a golden opportunity here to tell a story for the tag team titles with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens taking on the Usos. Otherwise, who else is there for the Usos to face? I mean, the Usos, they're going to face the winners of this tournament they got going on SmackDown. They're going to defend their SmackDown tag team titles. Sure, okay, but after that, who else is left? They have beaten everyone there is to beat. Come WrestleMania, you're just going to stick them in there with a random team, and then they're going to win? There's no other team who can conceivably beat them except for the pairing of Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. And so that takes care of that. The Roman story, you can still tell that story. You're just telling it a month earlier at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, which will probably hit even harder considering the fact that that pay-per-view takes place in Sami Zayn's hometown, his home country. So I think you can tell that story, you can do that match, just do it at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. And then Roman beats Sami. There's going to be some close spots in that match, I'm sure, but ultimately, Roman beats Sami thanks to the final assist, the most important assist coming from Jey Uso, who will spend all this time being conflicted about where he stands between Sami and the Bloodline, ultimately deciding that it's family first. That's something that was a point that he used to stress a lot when it came to Sami and why he didn't trust him so much, because he wasn't blood. Ultimately, Jey Uso, despite his conflicted feelings now, he will come back around to that point. But either way, no matter what, this whole story has just been so well done. I don't get to really praise WWE that much. A lot of people don't. It's very easy to crap on them for a bunch of nonsensical, illogical booking decisions that they have made over the years. This is not one of those things. This has been personally handcrafted to perfection from the moment it really got going all the way up until now. Every moment, every facial expression, every reaction, every word that is spoken, every act of physical violence that is taken, all of it means something. There is a meaning to all of it. It is not done by accident. It is done with careful precision. You can tell with that ending. That was one of the this is not an exaggeration. That was one of the greatest endings to a pay-per-view I have ever seen. I have been a wrestling fan for several years, practically decades, and that is one of my all-time favorite endings to a pay-per-view that I've ever seen. So great shit there. Unfortunately, I still have a whole rest of the pay-per-view to talk about because, yes, that was great, but that was just the ending of this show. A show overall that was pretty good, aside from a few things here and there that were not so good. And we even had 2 really good Rumble matches. Not perfect, especially the women's, but the one thing about both matches is they both had finishes that were really, really good. I mentioned earlier that Sami Zayn was not the one to win the Royal Rumble match. No, instead, that was Cody Rhodes. They've been running vignettes for Cody's big return for weeks now, although all of us knew coming out of that Hell in a Cell match last year, Cody was likely going to be the man to come back, win the Rumble, and go on to challenge for the championship. And clearly it looks like that is the story being told here. And they did that. Did I love what they did with Cody? Not exact. Only in that I was not in love with the idea of him coming out at number 30. I thought maybe he could have came out a little bit earlier in the match to really get some time to interact with a bunch of different guys and really kind of go the distance. Not necessarily start at number 1, but like come out just a little bit earlier. I think that would have been better. Although then the question is who would have been number 30, because it's like, well, they clearly didn't have any big surprises be in the Rumble match. There was no John Cena. There was no Stone Cold Steve Austin. I thought for sure we'd get Austin in the Rumble match. No sign of Austin. No Rock. No anyone like that. One of the biggest surprises was Logan Paul, who made his return after he got injured in that match with Roman Reigns at Crown Jewel last year. So Logan Paul was in there. We had a Booker T cameo for all of 30 or 40 seconds or something like that. And even Edge returned in this match. So there was a lot to like about this match. One thing I noticed right from the beginning, right from the first couple of entrants, like within the first 8 or 9 entrants, there was a lot of star power coming out in this match. This match opened up the show, which this is the first time the men's Rumble match has ever opened the Rumble pay-per-view, so that was historic in and of itself. But with this being at the very top of the show, you get an extra hot crowd, and they're going crazy for everybody coming out, and I thought that definitely worked. In this match, there were a lot of different stories being told that are going to set up future things, I'm sure. You had Sheamus and Drew McIntyre out there, no longer the Banger Bros, because WWE finally realized what the hell that actually means. So the fun got spoiled, but it was fun while it lasted, I guess. But they were out there, they were teaming up together, they had each other's backs throughout this match. Sheamus was one of the first two men in this match. He was number 2. Number 1 was the Intercontinental Champion Gunther, who had a hell of a run for himself in this match. Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley were both in this match. Their storyline continued. Brock returned on Raw the previous week, laid out Bobby Lashley, and then he appeared on SmackDown later on the week, and once again laid out Lashley. In this match, after Brock had a bit of a run for himself, he didn't last too long, and he ended up getting eliminated by Bobby Lashley. And it would not shock me if this entire match went on first solely because Brock wanted to get in, do his shit, and get out and leave and not be around for the whole show. It would not shock me if this entire 70-plus minute match took place at the beginning of the show just to service Brock Lesnar. So, but that continues their story, and it sets up their inevitable match coming out for WrestleMania. Kofi Kingston was in this match. He tried to do a Rumble save spot. I think it had something to do with Xavier Woods helping him with an announcer's chair. But much like last year, it looked like it ended up getting botched. Unfortunately, this time, it looked like Kofi got pretty banged up on it. When he kind of soared out and landed out on the floor, he connected with the announce table and looked like he hit it head first. So, as far as I know, there's been no updates on Kofi. But, yeah, I just stop with the Rumble spots, man, because it's clearly not working like it used to. We had Seth Rollins out there, and he had kind of a nice little story being told a little bit later on. The Judgment Day. All the men of the Judgment Day were out there. Rey Mysterio was supposed to come out at number 17, but Rey never came out. Instead, at number 18, it was Dominic Mysterio wearing a Rey Mysterio mask, implicating the idea that Dominic attacked his father and ripped his mask off his face and is now taunting him by coming out there. And of course, Damian Priest came out later. Finn Balor was out there later. And this set up the return of Edge, who came out at number 24. We haven't seen Edge since that I Quit match with Finn Balor at Extreme Rules last year. He came out, was a house of fire, speared all the Judgment Day guys. He eliminated Balor, eliminated Priest, went to eliminate Dominic, but then Balor and Priest came back up on the apron, and they eliminated Edge. So Edge wasn't out there for too long. He was in the match for a few minutes, but he got eliminated. But he was not gone completely. He started to attack Damian Priest and Finn Balor as they went back up the rampway. But out came Rhea Ripley, who started to attack Edge. But then from behind, we had the return of Beth Phoenix, who speared Rhea Ripley. And this was the only time we saw Beth Phoenix on this show. She did not appear in the Women's Royal Rumble match. Rhea Ripley did, but Beth Phoenix did not appear in that match. So this was a spot here. Maybe they're saving the actual match or like a mixed tag for the Chamber pay-per-view or some time between now and WrestleMania. So they didn't want to do any interaction between the two of them in the Rumble match itself. But it's all good because the night ended much better for Rhea Ripley than her getting speared here. So that was fine. I mentioned how Booker T, he was a surprise in the match. Only lasted for a few minutes. But then we had Logan Paul. Logan Paul was out there, and Logan Paul was involved in one of the best sequences I've ever seen in a Royal Rumble match where he was on the apron outside on the apron on one side of the ring, and Ricochet, who was also in this match, he was on the outside on the apron on the other side. And both men springboarded themselves into the ring, and in midair, they crashed into each other and just fell right down in the middle of the ring. And the fans went nuts for this spot. They both got some great airtime. They shot up and they were high up in the air and they just collided and crashed down. Now, this is not a completely unfamiliar spot, because if you watched the Ricochet Carmelo Hayes match from the Worlds Collide show last year, I believe that was the same show that aired on the same day as All Out. So if you watch that show, they had a very similar spot in that match. It looked very impressive there. It looked great. But this spot here in this match on a much bigger stage like that, it looked great. But Logan Paul, after this, he kind of rolled outside the ring and we forgot he was there. And so we thought, okay, now the Rumble match is kind of whittled down to Gunther, Seth Rollins, and Cody Rhodes. But oh no, Logan Paul was not gone yet, and he ended up eliminating Seth Rollins. So that sets up a potential WrestleMania match there. Logan Paul and Seth Rollins. Logan Paul has had 3 matches so far in WWE. All 3 of them have been really good, and Logan Paul has looked really good in all 3 of them. He's looked even better as each match has gone on. And if you want to get Logan Paul involved in a match at WrestleMania, and you want him to go out there and have a really good match with someone, I can't think of anyone better than Seth Rollins. So if this is the setup for a WrestleMania match with Seth Rollins and Logan Paul, I'm all for it. That would be great. Let's do it. But the actual final 3 in this match were Cody Rhodes, Logan Paul, and Gunther. Paul got eliminated, and it came down to number 1 and number 30. And these 2 basically went on to have a 10 or 15 minute, at least it felt like, wrestling match where Gunther was just abusing Cody Rhodes and targeting the pec area and all that, a bunch of vicious chops. They had a lot of elimination spots where it's like, oh, is he going to get eliminated? Oh, no, he didn't. There was some with Cody where it was like, man, one slip and their plans are fucked. That would be the ultimate botch. But luckily that did not happen. At one point, it looked like Gunther was about to dump Cody out. He had him up on his shoulders, but then Cody slipped out of it, hit Gunther with the crossroads, and then he eliminated Gunther to win the Royal Rumble match. So congratulations to Cody Rhodes. The commentators were stressing the point that now we need to finish the story. Of course, the story being Cody's point of when he came back and wanted to make his late great father, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, proud and wanted to go after the championship in his honor. And that's exactly the story that is being told here now with Cody Rhodes heading into WrestleMania after this Royal Rumble victory here. But let me not take any shine away from the true MVP of this match, that being Gunther. Gunther, the Intercontinental Champion who came out at number 1. He is now the new record holder for the longest amount of time spent in a Royal Rumble match at 71 minutes. Now, I will say, this match did not need to go 71 minutes long. That's something that I did not point out. The main event, all that stuff, happened at like 12:15, 12:17 a.m. The main event match, I don't think really actually started until like 11:40 or 11:45 or something like that. The show was too damn long. Bottom line. You could tell in the women's match because they were just throwing the idea of 90-second intervals out the window. And I believe a good chunk of it had to do with this first Rumble match. The final sequence with Cody and Gunther it was great, but it probably went way longer than it had to. But still very impressive from Gunther. The previous record holder was Rey Mysterio at 62 minutes. I think someone else beat him. I think Daniel Bryan beat him in that greatest Royal Rumble match that they still count because they mentioned how Braun Strowman won that match. But Gunther at 71 minutes is now the new record holder. It was great. He put on a great performance here, and that just goes to show how well this man has been booked ever since coming to the main roster. He won the Intercontinental Championship. He's had tremendous matches with that championship, most of which have been on TV. Not a lot of pay-per-views, which is unfortunate, but hopefully that can change this year. But yeah, he is the definitive final boss-like character. And he was booked to be that in this match. I also wanted to mention he did eliminate Sheamus and Drew McIntyre, both of them at the same time. And I think that is going to set up a triple threat for the Intercontinental Championship coming into WrestleMania this year. I wanted it to be Gunther and Sheamus Part 3 and just a straight up singles match. But then, where does that leave Drew? Not really much. So I think this whole partnership and rekindling of a friendship with Drew McIntyre and Sheamus is going to lead to them both getting a championship match for the IC title at WrestleMania. That's just my early prediction as far as that's concerned. But Gunther was booked like a damn boss in this match. But it was not enough to stop the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes, who did win the Men's Rumble. We also had the Women's Rumble, which was won by Rhea Ripley. Now, unlike Gunther, who came out of number 1 and lost, Rhea Ripley came out of number 1, and she actually won the match. In fact, the last 2 participants officially in this match were the number 1 and number 2 entrants, that being Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan, respectively. Now, in this match, we also had some surprises. We had some NXT cameos. Had the NXT Women's Champion Roxanne Perez in this match. Had Zoe Stark, Indy Hartwell, who apparently none of the commentators knew who the hell she was. There's Michael Cole, Corey Graves, and the returning Pat McAfee. It was great having Pat McAfee back on the show, back on commentary, even though this man clearly has not watched any WWE programming for the last several months, and it showed. It was still great to have him out there. This man is trying to get fired or trying to get somebody in trouble because he kept dropping Banger Bros mentions in the Men's Rumble match. But aside from that, it's still fun to hear him. But this match, it was fine. It was good. But it was not overly fantastic until those final closing moments. But we did still have some good spots here and there. A good chunk of this match was dominated by Damage Control. They were chucking out women left and right. And they, of course, continued their beef with Becky Lynch. We had a part of this match where Becky ended up eliminating Io and Dakota. And then Bayley eliminated Becky. And then Liv eliminated Bayley. And then all the women, they fought each other and brawled into the crowd and out of the arena. So that story is going to continue. We had the re-debut, the return of Chelsea Green in this match. And boy, a lot of these women who have come back under the Triple H regime, they come out and they don't get all that big of a reaction. But in this match, she did get kind of a decent reaction. And she got in the ring and she lasted, what was it, 4 seconds? Eliminated immediately by Rhea Ripley. So much for making an impact here. But the best return in this match, of course, was Asuka. Asuka got the biggest reaction out of anyone who came out in this match. And she had on this really crazy looking mask. And then when she removed the mask, she had on the old traditional Kana face paint. Of course, Kana being her original ring name back when she wrestled in Japan. Just Kana's a whole different level of killer monster talent. And we got a little bit of that in this match. She didn't win, and I was totally fine with her winning. and going up against any of the women's champions, but it wasn't to be. But she did make it to the final three, so that was great to see. The worst return in this match, and probably the worst return on this entire show, was Nia Jax. There had been rumors these last few days that there was a potential for Nia Jax to be in this match, and she was. And she actually got a pop. Unless that was piped in crowd noise, she got a big reaction. And it took all the women in the match to eliminate. I think by that point, it took like 11 women to eliminate her. But the funny thing about her coming out is her music played before the countdown even happened. You know how these Rumbles work. They do the countdown from like 10, they hit 0, or they hit 1, and then the buzzer, and then the music plays. That's how it's done. Then randomly, out of nowhere, we just hear Nia Jax's theme music play. And then we see the timer running down in the corner, and then it just gets taken off the screen. And then you hear like a faint buzzer in the background, and it's like, okay, well, that was completely botched, which was very apropos for Nia Jax coming out. So there you go. And I was hoping this would be a cameo and just a one-off, but they posted on their social media that there's already new merch for Nia Jax. So that tells you all you need to know there. But luckily, Nia was not involved anywhere in the closing moments of this match. It was all about Rhea, Liv Morgan, and Asuka, which was a fun final three. And the crowd agreed. They were really into this final three. So that was great. But in the end, like I said, Rhea Ripley won. And she has her pick. You have two different stories you can tell for WrestleMania. She can go after Charlotte. She has yet to beat Charlotte in decisive fashion. But the one I would prefer is Rhea Ripley versus Bianca Belair. It's a championship match at WrestleMania. No horsewomen involved. Two somewhat fresh faces in a championship match at WrestleMania. I know Bianca's been champion for over 300 days, but she's still a fresher face in the championship picture at WrestleMania. You often don't really get women's championship matches that don't involve Charlotte or Becky or someone like that. So it would be something new. And it's a match that I really, really want to see. So hopefully that's the direction we go in. So with that main event, especially with that closing angle, and two very good Rumble matches, the men's Rumble was way better than the one last year. I mentioned in my video last year that men's Rumble match was just completely boring and just lacked any star power. This year, not so much. There was a lot of star power, and the match was really fun. Both Rumble matches had very predictable outcomes, but predictable does not mean bad. Predictable can mean very good, especially if predictable makes sense. They were the predictable choices, but they were the correct choices. Cody Rhodes and Rhea Ripley. But with those three matches there, that's enough to give this show a thumbs up. And that is in spite of the two mid-card matches on this show. And boy, does that mid moniker belong to these matches. Bianca Belair and Alexa Bliss had a championship match that was completely nothing. Bianca won with the KOD after slipping out of a Sister Abigail attempt from Alexa Bliss. There was some flashes on the screen of the old evil Alexa and Uncle Howdy. Okay, but before that match, we had, of course, the Lights Out match with Bray Wyatt and LA Knight. I have no idea what the hell this was. So it wasn't completely in the dark. They had neon lights or glow-in-the-dark stuff. LA Knight's gear was all glow-in-the-dark. Bray had this neon-like face paint. They had these flashing neon lights. At one point, they crashed through the announce table, and when they did, this glow-in-the-dark gunk, confetti stuff, whatever it was, it just kind of exploded all over the place. It was still out there later on the women's Rumble match, so I don't know what the hell that was. this Mountain Dew pitch black match. You had a giant Mountain Dew logo in the middle of the ring. So as these two are fighting and this heated rivalry between these two guys is coming to blows here in this match, meanwhile, you have this giant logo for Mountain Dew right smack dab in the middle of the ring. So clearly you cannot take any of that seriously. But ultimately, Bray Wyatt won. This match went like 10 or so minutes. Bray won. Good for him. Bray won his first match back since returning in October. The man returned in October. This was his first TV match since that point, and he won. But it was not over. They fought out into the crowd. Bray was stalking LA Knight. He stalked him all the way out into the crowd, into this production area where Wyatt locked in the mandible claw. At this point, Bray had undergone a bunch of changes. He won the match and did so with red eyes. And then after the match, he put on some weird, creepy mask and he was chasing LA Knight. He chased him over to this little platform with this very tall structure where we see Uncle Howdy standing up there, and he comes crashing down off this tall structure down onto LA Knight, and then a bunch of explosions went off. Pyro, fire went off. Only if you kind of see the angle a little bit. They didn't completely shoot it head on, but you can kind of see on the angle there, clearly Uncle Howdy did not connect with LA Knight. And then if that wasn't enough confirmation for you, luckily some fan cam footage released on Twitter, and you could see directly head on Uncle Howdy completely whiffed and missed LA Knight entirely on this dive. So that about sums up that match. But the less said about those two matches, the better. This Rumble is defined by Rhea Ripley winning the Women's Rumble, Cody Rhodes winning a great Rumble match, outlasting Gunther and all these other people, and of course, that main event. A great championship match with an even greater story told with Sami Zayn and the rest of the Bloodline just to perfection. That is enough. That alone is enough for me to give this show a thumbs up and give this year's Rumble a huge thumbs up and recommendation if you did not see it. Please go out of your way to see that closing segment if you did not. And you will not be disappointed. And I just cannot wait to see where this story goes heading into WrestleMania. That is exciting. It is nice to actually be excited about the road to WrestleMania. So that's good. And that about covers it for me here. Thank you all for listening. I enjoy you all. I'm glad you all enjoy listening. I enjoy all of you coming around, and I appreciate all of you for tuning in. And if you like what you hear, go ahead, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on Twitter at DerekJ Speaks, where I will cover more content heading as we head on to the road to WrestleMania. WrestleMania goes Hollywood this year, and so as we venture towards that, I'll be covering more wrestling content from WWE and, of course, from AEW, because they have a big pay-per-view coming up soon, too, in March, the Revolution show. So I'll be covering all that kind of stuff. We got some big movies coming out soon. Might be covering that stuff, including Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. That's coming out in February, so you'll probably be getting a review from me on that movie. So whether it's movies, whether it's wrestling, whatever I feel like talking about, you can check out this channel and you can hear me, my blunt, honest thoughts about all this crazy stuff. So until next time, have a good day, have a good night. Check you all later.